Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, today I'm going to take a look at this little brushed quadcopter from 4DRC. This is a 4DRC 4D V22. I've had this drone for ages and just now finally getting around to reviewing it. In fact, Banggood sent it to me so long ago they don't even have it listed on their website anymore, but they do have these available on Aliexpress, and I will link to purchase links to Aliexpress if you are interested in this little drone, because this is a little brushed quadcopter with a 4K, I'll use quotes, camera here in the front. You see I already got powered on, so it's got white LEDs in the front and a red one in the rear. That 4K camera only records at around 9 to 10 frames per second through the app. So it's not really 4K, it's upscaled. It's probably 720p and your phone upscales it, and that's why it ends up at a horrible frame rate, because I just requires so much processing power to do that. So just doing a screen recording, which is what I will do in the app, should give us a nice like 1080p 60 fps feed. Of course you'll have the app icons visible on there, but it'll be much better than this phony 4K resolution on this little drone. It goes also by the name Smartly. It does have a pinhole camera on the bottom that should be for optical flow. You see a little red light flashing there next to it. There's no micro SD card slot, that's another thing, so you have to record everything over the Wi-Fi feed. I tested here inside, it doesn't seem to work. So it could just be that there's a lens and there's no camera, because I don't see it mentioned in the AliExpress listings, and when I try to have it fall on my hand, it just drifts on past. So the instruction manual does mention the downward facing camera. So maybe there's an option in the app that I missed that lets you view the ground, but every time I've seen that, it's also been an optical flow. So optical flow is supposed to follow your hand, but what it does is it looks at the ground, and then it will hold position by analyzing the ground that the camera sees and tries to keep what it's looking at within the frame. So that's sort of a poor man's GPS is what that is. But the most interesting thing about this drone is it has three-way obstacle avoidance. You can see this little bulb here, and there's one right up in here, and then there's one on this side. There's none on the rear. And this is using infrared, so as it sees an object, it will fly back the other direction. Forward, left, right, it will fly back. And I've tested it and it works quite well actually. But the problem with infrared obstacle avoidance is whenever you're outside, sunlight is going to cause interference, and it's going to block that infrared, or it's going to cause false returns. It's not going to work very well. Thankfully, you can enable and disable that mode. So it's not like you have to fly with it on all the time. So that's why I got it indoors now. I want to show you guys here in a moment the obstacle avoidance, because I'm outside and it's sort of windy out too, and I just don't think the obstacle avoidance is going to be easy to test outdoors, but it works really well in here. So I'll show you inside where it's calm and I have a controlled environment that the obstacle avoidance does actually work quite well on this little drone. Now, because it's brushed motor and it's geared brushed motor, it's just very, very noisy. So it's going to be difficult talking over that noise. In fact, when I'm going through the 3 speed rates, I couldn't hear the controller beep because of these noisy motors on this little guy. So do keep that in mind. Now, the app has some features that don't really work with this drone. Like it mentions the gimbal tilt here, and that doesn't do anything. This is certainly not motorized, so you have to preset the angle before you take off on this little drone. And again, the obstacle avoidance, I don't see. Excuse me, not the obstacle avoidance, the optical flow. I don't see that works at all on this little guy. You get a little bitty controller for this. You got your trims over here, of course, and I give it some throttle. If you give it throttle when it's bound, it will immediately spin up the props. But it has altitude hold is what I'm getting at. It does have an auto takeoff over here. I'm gonna have to get the instruction manual out just to make sure I don't tell you guys anything incorrect for the controls, because they're not like super well labeled. But you've got an auto takeoff here on the right. That is one key takeoff and landing. We can test that. Up above it here, the top one, that is your obstacle avoidance. So a short press on that turns it on. A short press will turn that mode off, which we'll be testing. A long press on that, it says sorry, excuse me, it's just telling short and long. There's no long press. Short press turns it on, short press turns off. There's no long press on this top one. The left button right here, that one is your headless mode on a short press, and a long press would do the gimmicky one key return, which is just junk. I wouldn't even use that. Just flying back the opposite direction. It's facing it takeoff. It's not an actual GPS return to home, obviously. And then the bottom one is your short press, is your emergency motor stop, and it is a short press, so you gotta make sure you don't actually bump that while you're flying. And a long press will do the gyro calibration. Now, the app, when you first fire it up, it may mention some things about doing calibrations, like for GPS. Obviously, this app is used on some of their other drones. This is not a GPS drone, so you don't do a compass calibration on this drone. And the app for this is called the 4DRC Pro, I believe it was called. Let me double check that. It is called the 4DRC Pro, correct. So I'll put a screenshot from the Play Store of that app. That's the app that you need to use. Obviously, you have a phone clip holder for your phone right here. And then on the top, you got 3 speed rates. You can hear it's cycling through those. 2 is a good rate to start with, especially indoors. And this is our 360 flips. Again, I'm gonna try to get it outside, find a calm place to fly this, and we'll test some of those other features outside where we have room to move it around. We don't have any room for that indoors. It comes with a nice carrying case, a little 4D logo zipper case. And you do get 2 batteries. The one obviously is in the drone. And this is a 2000 milliamp hour 1SL or 1S LiPo battery for this. And then they give you extra props, prop guards, your charger in there, which the red light is off when you charge it. When it's fully charged, the red light will come on. And a little Phillips screwdriver in there. All right, guys, and that's the reason why I'm doing it like this, because I want to test it indoors. So this is sort of a dirty review. But as you know, I don't really do table reviews for these toys anymore because nobody watches them for the toys. So let's get this on the ground. I don't have the app connected. I did test it, obviously, and it does work. But like I said, because it's upscaling to 4K, you even have a 6K version. Can you imagine how bad that is going to be upscaled to 6K? The 4K is horrendous. And I checked that using media info, so I know I got accurate information on the resolution and the frame rate. And like I said, it said it was around 9 frames per second at 4K. So do not use this. In fact, the non-camera version will be cheaper, is what you should get. This camera's junk. There's no reason to have it. It's absolute garbage. But for a little flyer, it ought to be pretty decent with the little testing I did here inside. So we can just give it throttle. Let's do an auto takeoff, and then I'll show you the obstacle points, and we'll get outdoors and we can actually open it up and fly it better. So I'm gonna press the auto takeoff. And as you guys can hear, it is noisy. Listen to how noisy that is. But it's nice and stable. That's the second rate. If I go up the third rate, it's even faster, and down to the first rate, it slows down a little bit. But the main thing is the pitch. That's the highest rate, I believe. Look how little roll there is on the lowest rate. That's the middle rate. That's what we'll keep it in. Now, I'm gonna short press this, and we'll go into obstacle avoidance mode. Now the light will flash in the rear that it's an obstacle avoidance mode. Look at that. It does greatly reduce the pitch of the drone, so you can't fly very fast in that mode, which is smart because it needs to be able to sense objects. So let's fly forward. Look at that. It flies right back. It detects it, and it really works well. Look, watch that. Let me get over here where you guys can see. Ease forward, and boy, it goes right back. Let's rotate it, and let's try it on the side. So let's go edit the door sideways, and there it goes. If I rotate around to the other side and go towards the door, it's going to do the same. There it goes. Oop, almost gave it. That's one thing, whenever you face towards yourself, your controls are reversed. Oh, look at that. It's trying to, ooh, like crash. That's what happened there, is the obstacle avoidance detected the one of my lights, and the drone flew over there and crashed into one of my other lights. But yeah, that's testing the obstacle avoidance. Now, it stays in this mode, like I said, until you disable it. So if I want to take off and fly in normal mode, I've got to, I'll go ahead and just give it throttle and show you guys. Give it throttle to start it, and then throttle again to take off. It's still in obstacle avoidance. and there it goes. So, ooh, whoa, it is all over the place because, whoa! And what's happening there is it's the obstacle avoidance mode. It's just constantly banging into stuff, but everything looks like it's fine. I thought I threw a prop off. Something flew off over there, but I don't know what it was. Anyway, let's turn that mode off. I know this looks super clumsy, guys, but again, I'm just trying to show you guys this. And you gotta make sure if you do crash it, these arms don't lock into place. So it's gonna get knocked out of whack and then the drone will fly really bad. So quick press, now we got a solid red light. Now I give it throttle and there we are, look at that. And if I land it, we can go into calibration mode by doing it was a long press on this, I think. And then yeah, it will flash a couple times and now it's calibrated for level. So the drone starts drifting on you. Calibrate the level first, then trim it. Yeah. All right, guys, that's enough indoors. Let's get this drone outside where we can actually open up and fly it some, though it is rather breezy out at times. So let's keep that in mind that I'm gonna try to fly it between my house and my neighbors where I have a little shelter. And you can see this camera keeps getting knocked out of whack as well. But I'll just screen record the app so you guys can even see what the camera looks like. It does not look good. So be right back, guys. All right, let's get the V22 outside now and actually fly it around and see how it flies. Here when I can open it up some. I got it between my house and the neighbors so I can kind of shelter it because at times it's quite breezy. It seems like the wind may have let up some, so you might have actually lucked out in those regards. I'll try to show you the obstacle flow. I don't think it really works. I couldn't see any indication that it does. We're just gonna fly it in regular mode. I'm not gonna worry about the obstacle ones because as you guys saw, it barely has any pitch or roll, and it's gonna be a disaster. I think if any wind, you need a very calm day to test that. Now I've got the app connected, and I'm not gonna put it in my phone because I don't need to fly by the video. I just want to capture some video. I got screen recording going. You can see it's better. It's better than 9 or 10 frames a second there on the phone, but I'm just got a screen recording going so you'll see all the icons. You can see we've got about, I guess it's half or a little over half battery. So let's go ahead and set it down. And I have it in the highest rate because in case there's some wind, I want to be able to handle that. So let's go ahead and get it up here and see how it does. Let's go and do an auto takeoff. I'm just kind of wobbling around. Let's give it a little left trim. I thought I had it trimmed up, and that could be a little wind doing that too. But yeah, that seems to fly pretty decent. And do some funnels in the highest rate there. And we'll try the 360 flips as well. So it's a sporty little flyer. I think this is going to be just fine. I've had good luck with the 4DRC drones in regards to being good little toy flyers, but they're not camera drones, so keep that in mind. That's certainly not what these are for. So all the 4K, 6K is all a gimmick. They have a whole bunch of different ones listed on Aliexpress, 720p, 1080p, 4K, 6K. It's all a joke. They're all 720p at the best, and it just depends on what the app is doing. In fact, there's probably not gonna be any difference in terms of, they probably all upscale to 4K and look like garbage, is my guess. So let's do some 360 flips while we have sufficient battery power. Then we'll see if the optical flow works at all, because sometimes you need to be a certain height off the ground for it to actually work right. So usually they will follow your hand. So let's do a 360 flip, and yeah, that works fine. Sometimes drones are this, not that this is big, but they can sometimes get clunky. And let's try to do a back one. Will it do a backwards flip? I don't know. Doesn't look like it does. It may be one of these ones that only does, you know, it could be low battery too. Yeah. It's not wanting to flip anymore. So it's probably already reached low battery. So while we have a moment, let's see if we can get in the optical flow, because I think it's, as much as you see it drifting there, it almost looks like it wanted to take off and go left. There's no optical flow. So either that camera doesn't have a camera or it just doesn't work right. But yeah, I don't have the app in front of me, but it's got to be low battery. That's why that red light's flashing really fast in the rear. So not surprisingly, the battery meter in the app is not very accurate. That's always the case on these toys. It's not like it's just this drone. They're just terribly inaccurate. The optical flow doesn't seem to work, but at least we got to see a couple flips and they seem to be fine. So it should flip in all 4 directions. Some of the drones will only flip left or right, roll. If they're like a longer drone, I think it's gonna come on down land. There we go. All right, guys, so that wraps up the kind of dirty review, I call this. Even though I'm not doing full reviews on these toys for the reasons I mentioned, you know, this wasn't the best, but I've had this thing for probably, I mean, I bet I've had this since last summer. And obviously with not much to do now, I wanted to get it up and review it, but you know, with all the gimmicks and stuff, I just wanted to see, because I didn't even know it had obstacle avoidance. So I'm glad to see that works. So if you want a drone that you could have obstacle avoidance, let's say if you want to fly it indoors, it works really well as long as you have a decent amount of room. And it works in all directions except for it's done in the reverse, obviously. That works really well. It flies really well. It seems to flip really well. The camera's junk as we expect, so if you want a decent camera, obviously you don't want to buy this. But if you want a rather inexpensive flyer that has that gimmick of obstacle avoidance, which does work well, then this one might be a choice for you. So again, I'll include a purchase link down to Aliexpress. I'm not going to include in the Banggood because they don't have this model. But they do have an Aliexpress. I think they're running in the $50 range, so I mean, that's not bad at all, considering it does fly well. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Click the bell. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video. As always, guys, have a great day.
The power of the dark side.